Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Two things. First, happy holidays. I hope you're all enjoying your holiday season. It's the end of the 22nd, almost the 23rd, which means 2 days till Christmas for me. So whatever you're celebrating this season, I hope it's happy, it's fun, it's safe. Well wishes to everybody out there. Two, apologize, I haven't been more a part of your holiday season. November, December have been a rough one for me. I've been in a bit of a low and in a bit of a rut, and if I'm not physically getting out of the apartment, my motivation has been on empty, basically. So last time we spoke was after Avatar Way of Water. If you want to see my thoughts right out of that theater, you can see those, and now we're back with another fresh out the theater, and you're going, see, man, it's not, I know, but there's a reason. And we'll get there in a minute. But first, there's a movie that came out tonight. A movie I was excited about. Damien Chazelle, Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt. I mean, those three things get me excited. The idea of Chazelle playing with the 20s and 30s of film. It looked like it was going to be wild and crazy, and it is wild and crazy. It just isn't the smoothest of landings and the most focused of films. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in fresh out the theater and spoiler-free into Babylon. And like I said, I'm sort of fresh out the theater. There's a storm system coming through the Northeast. I think we're going to get less snow than what they're saying. Maybe no snow now. But the wind has certainly been legit. And I was outside the theater, and I was shooting a review. When I uploaded it and started to edit it, well, it sounded like this. You might see that for the actors because the performances are great. The movie, not quite there. So as this wind is whipping, and you can't really do much with anything that sounds like that. The wind was really, really whipping. So I was like, you know what? Let me sit down inside the apartment and do it here. So these are still my fresh out the theater thoughts. Just, I've had one take and a walk to think about things. But Babylon is a movie I wanted to love because there is lots of great stuff in here. Justin Hurwitz's score is phenomenal. I mean, you're talking about 20s, 30s cinema. Orchestra was on set in the days of silent pictures, and at different times. So it's a very orchestra, very brass horns driven kind of score, but it pushes. Like, when the movie needs to go, it gets the movie going. And for me, Hurwitz's score is phenomenal, start to finish. Linus Sandgren, cinematographer, and what Chazelle has going on visually in this movie, spectacular stuff. The way Sandgren is able to move, the movie has an opening, and then we get to this, like, Baz Luhrmann Great Gatsby level insane party, the one we've seen in all the trailers, and that leads into the first day of shooting in a silent film, which on set could be nuts. You could have 25 things going on at once. Explosions over here, bar sequences over here. It wouldn't have mattered because you weren't capturing sound. And watching Sandgren move the camera in and out of some of these sequences and how he films, specifically Margot Robbie. Anytime she is involved with what we're watching, that's when this thing is really working for me. But yeah, Sandgren just moves the camera wonderfully. Him and Chazelle really build out some wonderful sequences and some wonderful takes and scenes. I mean, there are some long takes that really work. And like I said, I think Chazelle crafts some really good stuff in here. You go scene by scene in this movie, there's a lot of good to be looking at. Specifically when you're talking about the actors. The acting in this movie is stellar. Margot Robbie turns in maybe the best performance of her career, if not one of the best. I mean, she's always phenomenal when she's on screen, but man, like, everything is firing. It's like, you look at all the greatness that she's had, and if you took all of it and you threw it in a blender and you created something with all of that greatness so that was all on display, it's this role. I mean, whether she's dancing, whether she's flirting, whether she's acting, whether she's happy or sad or up, like, everything she is doing, I am just like glued to the screen. And it was so wonderful to finally see her act opposite of Brad Pitt. They were in two movies prior to this, The Big Short, where they never crossed paths, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And to see them finally get to act off each other was wonderful. And I think it's kind of funny that there was all of this commotion about this kiss between Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie because it wasn't in the script. And in my head, like, you hear Robbie on the red carpet going like, how often does a girl get a chance to kiss Brad Pitt? I said, I'm just go for it. You heard Pitt say, like, he kind of laughed it off and was like, she's doing crazier stuff than that in this movie. But yeah, it was something that just was natural. There's room for interpretation. We signed off on it beforehand, and it works in the movie. And when you watch all of that, I go, yeah, I understand that. Like, in the moment, I understand why she did what she did. But, like, the way it was talked about, you're thinking, like, it's this crazy romantic kiss. It's not. You blink, you might miss it. And in a 3-hour movie that's kind of slow, we'll get there, you might miss it, like, or forget about it. I just thought that was funny. But seeing them act off each other was great. I mean, he's Pitt. And their chemistry was quite natural. And it was fun to watch because Robbie's Nellie Leroy is an up-and-coming wannabe actor who catches a little bit of fire. And Jack Conrad, Brad Pitt's character, is kind of like the elder statesman. He is the face of Hollywood and kind of on the back side. So watching their two stories interact with each other, it's just great stuff. And what Pitt does from handling the opposite, right, like the yang to the yin that is Margot Robbie's younger actor, he does great things. I mean, he captures a room, right? Like, he just brings that regality, and like he walks in, you're like, oh my god, that's Jack Conrad. And he could be all over the place, but the minute they say action, you're getting the best of the best. And Pitt crushes that stuff. But those two performances are not to be overstating. The technical lead of the movie, and a guy I wasn't super familiar with, and that's Diego Calva. His Manny is a guy who's just trying to be a PA so he can get into the film industry, and he also is very, very good. He works well off both Pitt and Robbie, who he's, opposite a lot of in this movie. And to stand next to Titans like that, I thought he held his own very, very well. He keeps you interested, and I really enjoyed his performance. And then if you're talking about actors, I'm going to go Jovan Adepo and Gene Smart, who play Sydney, this trumpet player, and Eleanor, this movie journalist. Again, great things. Smaller roles, but they have really wonderful moments. I mean, there's a bit for Gene Smart with Brad Pitt that's just like so good. And just like a moment where like everything in there, like the way Pitt reacts at the end of that monologue, you're just like, yeah, I'm with you. And she crushes that stuff. Adepo has a scene that'll punch you dead center of the chest, man. Really powerful stuff, and he handles everything that he's got like a crazy role being like a trumpet player, and with the swiftness and moving of the movie, like his character is kind of feels like he's being thrown around like a rag doll, but I think Adepo does a really great job. And then everyone around them, I think, does wonderful stuff. I mean, you get Jeff Garland and Flea playing like studio executives, like studio heads. It's wild stuff. And this movie has so much in it. I knew I was forgetting at least one other major point of view. There is an additional actor, an Asian American woman played by Lee Jun Lee, named Lady Faye. She has another really unique take and spot as you see where she can be utilized and where she can't be utilized. And the interactions that she has, specifically with Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt, again, are things that I really, really do dig in the movie. And another wonderful performance from her. And then I got to give a shout out to my dude, Tobey Maguire. We've seen him in the trailers. I forgot to mention him in my run just now because he's not one of the main characters, but he pops up for like 10-15 minute bit in the third act where things are getting a little messy, and he's phenomenal. I mean, I love me some Tobey Maguire. He's having a lot of fun. He's really leaning into the character that he is playing, and it does provide some nice entertainment in a third act that's kind of waning and struggling a little bit. But I wanted to make sure I threw those actors and performances in there because they were also awesome. But everybody that shows up is really bringing it. I mean, set design, wild. Costume design, all of it's great. And Damien Chazelle is really, I think, where the success of this movie lies, is with him and his vision, because Chazelle is playing with a lot of interesting ideas. I mean, if you look at the movie, I would almost argue his main character is cinema. And this movie is like a love letter to cinema. You know, the way Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood really drilled into like the late 60s, early 70s of cinema and that wild time. Like Chazelle is nailing the 20s and 30s, and it's another pivotal time. Like you think of like technology now and how nuts it is. Back then, you were going from silent film to sound to eventually color. Like but going from no sound to sound was such an interesting moment in Hollywood, and Chazelle's look at that time period is interesting and fascinating a lot early on, right? Like the chaos of the beginning of the movie. My theater was empty, so I texted my friend Hill. I was like, I don't know if this movie is going to be a mess or if it's going to be a masterpiece. And I was specifically talking about Robbie. I was like, Margot Robbie's on fire, man. Like, and it is one of those where like early on, I wasn't sure if the movie was going to recover from the chaos. But as I got through the movie, I found myself going back and on the walk home, like going back to the first two acts that are kind of chaotic more, because Chazelle figures out how to take all that chaos and funnel it through in a way that really drives the overarching story of cinema, right? Where you see the insanity of that party, like I said, where the camera's moving through there, and then a day on set during a silent film with all this crazy stuff going on. And then you move into the chaos of filming with sound and how drastically different it is, but just as crazy. Like, that stuff, really interesting, really working. But then you take, like, a sequence in that stretch where Robbie is being asked to act inside of acting, right? And you're watching her do these insane things. Her range is so crazy and in full display for, like, a minute and a half. But you're getting all these stylistic things, right? Where like you're seeing every different vision or version of what something could have looked like coming out of there. And like that is a really good, I think, metaphor for the movie, because that's what it feels like. It's like Chazelle has all of these wonderful ideas and thoughts and just ways to show how much he loves film and where cinema comes from. And he throws it all at the wall. And by the time you get into the third act, the individual character storylines don't really land smooth. And, you know, I think some of the decision makings and some of the interactions feel off because they don't have time to breathe. And that's crazy because this is a 3-hour movie and the pacing is really not good. And I think that comes from the unfocusedness of everything that's not cinema or Nellie Leroy. And even there, I think toward the end, like her character, I'm not like all in on, and I wish someone could have kind of maybe reined in some of the creative freedom that Chazelle had here, where you could have tightened this thing up a little bit. I think you could have shaved 30, 45 minutes off this thing, had it a lot tighter, and still accomplished a lot of what Chazelle is doing, which is a lot of great individual pieces. And the other thing, too, that I think kind of hurts the movie for me is it feels... I watched it, it felt like Chazelle was trying to do Tarantino. And when you have something like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which tackles the 60s of cinema, and you're doing like another really big period piece era type thing, you look at that and that's a lot of scenes, right? Like you get these unbelievable, phenomenal individual scenes. And Chazelle does that here. And there's these insane moments that'll make you go, I can't believe you did this, kind of like shock factor stuff. But the difference is Tarantino knows how to thread that needle, and when he does use shock value things, it just enhances the movie and the storytelling, what the actors are doing. And I feel like when Chazelle is piecing this one together, it kind of feels like a bad imitation, and he doesn't know how to thread that needle, so the story doesn't land. And when he does include things that are shock value, and that's really more toward the front of the movie, I would say, but it really feels like it's there to make you go, oh, whoa, and it kind of feels shoehorned in, and those things kind of bump into each other and creates a movie that is uneven and tonally uneven. That a depot scene that gets you a dead center chest, you don't really get to have the full emotional impact. That's a scene that I probably should have rolled a tear to. It's a scene if I would have watched on its own, I probably do cry a little bit. But because of what it's surrounded by and the tonal differences, it just doesn't connect the way you want it to. And for me, the movie suffers because of that and kind of ends up being in the middle of the road rather than something you're talking about come Oscar time, which I hope everything, like the things around the movie don't get overlooked, like the performances and the set design and all that stuff. Like I hope that gets looked at because there are Oscar-worthy things in this movie. It's just the movie itself as a whole doesn't quite land. So that's it. I'm going to shut up. Let's get the C-Maniacs up. Like I said, phenomenal performances, specifically from Robbie, Pitt, and Calva. Really great stuff technically, sound design, score, cinematography, set design, costumes, but all of these great things that Chazelle has, including sequences and bits of storytelling and playing with, a really interesting time in film, he doesn't quite know how to bring them all together for a satisfying conclusion. And the third act is really where this movie kind of falls apart for me. And while I thought the chaos of the first two acts might have been the issue, I like those two. The third act just couldn't land it, and it feels like a movie where it's like, okay, I got all these great things. How do I put this thing down? And I think a little bit of that creative and love for film just gets a little bit in the way of Chazelle's storytelling, but it hurts the movie, I think, more than it helps it. And I got to go 2.5 out of 5 C-Maniacs. I know that might seem harsh, but it really does feel like if that third act clicks, this thing is like I said, an Oscar nominee. But it doesn't, and it really kind of falls off for me afterwards. So I'm going to shut up, and I want to know what you guys are thinking. Have my opinions swayed your excitement? Do you think I'm crazy? Or you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that was where we landed, like 2.5? I don't know. If you haven't seen the movie, tell me your thoughts on that. When are you going to see it? Are you excited to see it? Where are you going to see it? You going to go to the theaters during the holidays? You going to wait for it to come out on streaming? And if you have seen it, what did you think? Is this a little bit of an unfocused tonal and story mess that has a lot of good things in it, or am I just missing the boat? And is this thing phenomenal, man? If you saw it, I want to know what you're thinking. Good, bad, indifferent on Babylon. Put it down below in the comment section. Obviously, I definitely want to know what you thought about the kiss. If you saw the movie, I thought it was a little blown out of proportion, but fun nevertheless. But yeah, put all that down below. Look forward to talking to you guys down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions. You want to be here to see my end of the year stuff. I will get up best and worst of the year. You want to show a little love and support for the holiday season. Give me a little Christmas gift as I move toward Christmas. We're trying to get to 3,000. You can give me a gift by joining the C-Maniac Nation simply by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those C-Man goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.